What's up, y'all? This is Isaiah Fowler, the founder of SWAV Eyewear and SWAV Agency. And today, I have a good episode for you, man. We talking about things that you should be focusing on to get to your to six figures and then to get to seven figures, right? And so we really gonna be talking about a lot of different strategical things to focus on from what I've seen, from what I've experienced, right? And from what I know. So some of the things that I'm going to be talking about today are going to be coming from this workbook right here, right? I made this workbook, Strategize with a Vision, because if you want to get to seven figures, you're going to need strategy, right? You can get to six figures by an accident, and a lot of people have. But if you want to get sustainably to seven figures and sustainably to six figures, then you definitely want to focus on this right here, right? So we got a lot of it's a lot of perspective to really share in regards to getting to six figures and seven figures. And, let's talk about the six first, right? I feel like number one, if you want to get to six figures and or seven figures, you really need to understand that 6 and 7 figures ain't really nothing. And what I mean is that's very, very, very small in the grand scheme of business. So a lot of times people think 200,000 a year is really good because deep down, subconsciously, they've never experienced that. So of course, 200,000 is a lot when you've never experienced it. You've never touched it. You don't know what it feels like. You don't know what it looks like, right? But when you start getting to a point where you are making money or you just elevate your mind, then it doesn't become as big and right and as grandiose. So what I mean is, or what I really try to encourage people to do is, in your mind, you need to reframe things, right? If you want to really be wealthy at the end of the day, you're going to have to learn how to reframe things no matter what you're doing. It could be health, it could be fitness, it could be financial, it could be, religious, it could be spiritual, whatever it is, right? You need to understand how to reframe things so that you could change your perspective and you could continue to go forward. All this is a mind game, right? This whole game, business, trying to build wealth, it's all a mind game. So you got to understand the mind for real. And so getting to six figures, you're going to need a few things, right? Of course, you're going to need a product, right? This is assuming that you are maybe at 30,000 or, last year you did 20,000 or 50,000 or something like that. And you're really trying to get to, 200, 150, 300, something like that. And it also depends on where you're at, in that six figure range as well. But from what I've seen, a lot of people have gotten to six figures accidentally. And then the next year, they don't hit that same revenue amount. So number one, you got to be intentional, right? You have to be intentional. You got to be strategic. The earlier you're intentional and the earlier strategic, the further you're going to go. Okay. You don't want to make 200,000, not know how you made it. And then you have to backtrack and try to figure it out. That's not really building a business here. Okay. So you really, from day one, no matter where you're at right now, I want you in your mind to set a goal. And I want this goal to sit here and be and or say, okay, set a goal for 20 million, okay? Because when you set a goal for 20 million, six figures doesn't seem that far, right? Six figures is now just, a part of the journey to get into 20 million. That's what I did. I stopped saying I want to make six figures, and then I started saying I want to sell my company for X. Now in my mind, the North Star is, 9 figures, and now 6 just seems like child's play, and it doesn't even seem like a lot, right? So number one, just you gotta dream bigger, right? You gotta, and right here, right? The first thing we talk about the vision, right? Your North Star. What's your North Star? If you don't have a star, if you don't have a North Star, if you don't have an objective, you're not gonna go anywhere. So be intentional. Really, business has nothing to do with the technicalities. Once you understand the way to think, it don't matter what the business is, you'll be successful. And that is a fact, okay? So the Shopify, the Klaviyo, that's all formalities because one day there's gonna be a different platform on the scene for e-commerce, right? So you want to understand that, like, it's not about the platform. It's about the strategy. It's about the mindset. That's why I always talk about strategy and mindset, because that's what's going to really, really get you where you want to go. The Shopify, the Klaviyo, you could learn on YouTube how to work that software. That's the easy part. But you need to master yourself and you need to master your mind, right? So stop thinking that 6 figures is a lot of money. Okay. And this stuff will it'll literally change your life if you apply it over time. Okay. So don't take this stuff I'm saying lightly. So you be intentional. You have a strategy, right? So the next thing is you need to understand where you're going. Okay. I've done a lot of intensives and people don't fully understand like what's at stake and where they're going. You need to understand where you're going, right? Because now you have this number. Let's say it's 20 million. Okay. Now it's 20 million. Then the next thing is understand why you want to get there. Understand like what you want your brand to be, right? Do you want to be the luxury in this space? Or like, what do you want to be? We have to get away from being in survival mode. We have to get away from only wanting to make money. And this is why I'm always like, yo, don't just want to make money. You need to have a long-term vision. Like, that's really a fact. I don't care how much money you're trying to make. If you want to build wealth and you want a company that's sustainable and long-term, that has longevity and has staying power, you need to have a long-term vision. It blows my mind how many people don't know like what they want their company to be, because they were only focused on the revenue. They were only focused on the money. So you really got to have a long-term vision, okay? This is literally what separates those who see long-term success and those who don't, right? Another thing is getting to 6 figures is about learning what you're selling. That's what I've seen, right? You get to your first 100,000, you're really a baby, but you're trying to figure out like what's your angle, right? So in your mind, I want you to think of it as a puzzle. Business, no matter, there is no ending until like the company is done or you sold the company, right? There is no like ending. It's a big ass puzzle and you are always trying to figure out what to place, right? So it's a huge puzzle and you're trying to figure out what pieces fit in what place. That's how I look at business. It's never a start. It's never an end. Okay. So you need to understand that. And a part of that puzzle is learning what you're selling. So that's like the first part of the puzzle, right? Getting to 100,000. And when I say 100,000, I'm really talking about direct to consumer, because you can make 100,000 wholesale and still not know what you're selling. Okay. So remember, everything I say is about D to C, direct to consumer. You're really learning what you're selling. And then once you learn what you're selling, right? Let's say you get to 100,000, between 100 and 5,000, you really learning like what people like. Because if you haven't hit 100,000 yet, you don't have enough data to really hear like and understand like what your company is really about. Because if we break it down like based on like AOV and how many orders and how many customers 100,000 is, maybe is depending on what you're selling, that's between 1,000 and maybe like 4,000, customers at an AOV of whatever the case may be. And that's in one calendar year. So you want to know what you're selling. So if you're at making, $3,000 a month, ask yourself, what am I really selling? Right? Because this is the foundation of things. So once you understand what you're selling, and I'm not talking about the product. Remember, I'm talking about the brand. I'm big on brand and strategy because this creates your positioning. Okay? This creates your positioning. So now it's like, all right, what am I really selling? You have candles, you have hats, right? But what is the real reason why you're selling this thing? So as you're getting sales and you're communicating with customers, you can't really get to a certain level without communicating with your customers. So once you are getting sales coming in, you're communicating with your customers, you're engaging with your customers, you're really learning what your business is about. You're really learning what your customers like. You're learning from your customers. Now, once you get a certain amount of data from those customers, and that's just going to equate to a certain revenue amount, now you take that, right? You take that information that you've documented on a Google Doc or whatever from what your customers have said. Now you implement that into your business to get to the next level. Okay. So let's say you get to 150,000, right? or you get to $16,000 a month or $13,000 a month. However you want to look at it. Let's say you went from 8K a month, which is it's like 100 and something thousand. And then you're like, okay, where am I at right now, which is $8,000 a month? And now I take the data that I have from this $8,000 chunk a month. I communicate with my customers. I see what's going on with them. Now I serve them, right? So now you use that information to get you to $15,000 to $20,000 a month, right? Now you have to know how to interpret the data. You have to know how to make strategic decisions based on this data. And that's why this is so important. And that's why strategy is so important. That's why a strategist is so important. You cannot do this alone, right? So now you're taking that data to get to the next level. You want to be able to always, as early as possible, you want to be stepping outside of your company and you want to be sitting on the mountaintop looking down from the outside perspective so that you can see where the company needs to go, right? You don't need to be in your business all the time. Get out of it as early as possible so that you can be moving like a real boss and a real CEO and a real founder. And a CEO and a founder, those are two different things as well, right? So then now we got some momentum, right? We make it $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. All right, cool. So now we got a little bit of operations going on. We got a little bit of revenue, being generated, maybe $30,000, $40,000 a month. Okay, now what? Now this is when, depending on what platform you're marketing on, this is when, if you're running paid ads at this time, I think that, you could get to, $30,000, $40,000 a month without ads. Everybody has their own strategy, right? But from a sustainability perspective, you want to know where your orders are coming from. You want to know, right, what your CAC is, and that's a really big thing. That's also in here as well. So getting to that million, especially now because it's more competitive. Everybody has a business now. Everybody has an online business. Everybody's selling a product. You really want to understand what your CAC is, right? Usually people aren't really focused on this until maybe a couple million. Because they probably grew a little bit fast or whatever the case may be, or they have an ad agency running the ads, so they don't know what was really going on from a numerical, metrics point of view. They just know that their revenue is growing, and that's not a good place to be either. Okay, you want to know what your CAC is. If you have an ad agency right now and you don't know what your CAC is, how are you gonna grow your business? You got somebody else in charge of your business instead of you, right? You need to know your numbers and you need to know your metrics. So CAC, how much does it cost to acquire a customer? Okay, the earlier you focus on this, the more successful long-term your company is going to be because you have a better grasp on it, right? So we're going to break this down. Get into seven figures, understanding your CAC, understanding your LTV, okay? So CAC and LTV, how much is it costing me to acquire a customer, right? If you're paying Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, right, to get customers. And let's say that, your conversion amount is $50, okay? If it's $50, and let's say your product is $100, what this means is for every $50 you're putting in, you're getting $100 back. So the goal is, okay, let's now drop our CAC as much as we can. Now the question is, how do we drop our CAC, right? How do we drop our CAC? How do we get our CAC from $50 to $30? Because if we get the CAC from $50 to $30 and we still have that same AOV of $100, now for every $30 we put out, we're getting $100. You need to have this down to a science. And you need to be able to track these things on a monthly basis. And once you start hitting $1 million or more, on a weekly basis. It really just depends on where you're at. But the earlier you start doing things weekly and tracking things weekly, like your business is going to start to get moving even faster, right? And you're just going to have a better grip on things. Another thing, if you're trying to get to $1 million or more, right? And 8 figures as well. There's like a transition period that goes on. And so you want to make the transition from focusing on how much am I making a month to how much am I making a day, right? Because here's the thing. Once you get to a certain level, you're already making money every day, right? So when you're making $100,000 a month, you're excited to make, $10,000 in a month. So you're not worried about the efficiencies yet. This is just how it works. You're not worried about the efficiencies yet. But if you could, instead of focusing on how much money you're making per month, focus on how much money you're making per week, and then focus on how much money you're making per day. Because the more granular you get in the tracking of your metrics and all your operational things and stuff like that, the more your business is going to be profitable and successful. Okay? So I don't even care if you're not making money every single day, because you can be making $5,000 a month and not making money every single day. And that is exactly why you need to be focused on how much you're making per day, because if you can focus on how much revenue are we driving per day, then you get to a point where you know how much money you're going to be making by noon and how much you're going to usually finish the day off with, right? And once you start getting in the flow of that, you really become dangerous and you really become lethal, because you become so lethal and dangerous because you went from focusing on how much we're making a month. Think about it. How much are we making a month is like looking, 180 yards away with no binoculars. How much are we making per week? Now you got some binoculars with a little bit of magnification. And then how much are we making per day is like you got the best binoculars on the planet, and you can see the blade of grass from where you're at 200 yards away. That's how you really want to be. That's what you really want to be focused on. See, we be focusing on content and all this other stuff. And yes, that's important. And we be focusing on Instagram and all these other things. But to understand all your metrics and understand, okay, how much am I making per day? That's a different level. That's going to get you to the 7 figures. Right there, knowing all your metrics from a day-to-day perspective, you can't lose that way. You cannot lose that way, right? This is literally so important. Make the transition from being focused on how much are we making a month to how much are we making a day. You're going to see your whole life change, because now if you're not making money every day, you're going to be like, damn, what do I need to do to make money every day? And then when you get to a point where you are making money every single day, like clockwork, then you're going to say, how can we increase our revenue to get it to X amount per day? So if we usually doing, let's just say on average, you're making $10,000 a day, right? Okay, cool. It's $300,000 a month, $310 a month. All right, that's cool. Now, what if 10K a day, you like, okay, how can we get to 13K a day? If we're usually at, let's say, $5,000 by, let's say 11 a.m., that's an hour before noon, halfway through the day, then we should be able to figure out something or strategize something on how we can get to, 10K by noon, right? Or 7K by noon, and then that'll give us a half a day, and then we could figure out, a process to squeeze out an extra $1,000, $2,000 for the day, and now we could go from $10,000 a day to $13,000 a day, right? These things matter, and these things are so important. So if you're trying to get to 6 and 7 figures, you got to really change your mindset on how you approach things, okay? Change your mindset on how you approach things. If you want to get to 6 figures, stop focusing on 6 figures and you'll get there. If you want to get to 7 figures, also stop focusing on that. Focus on the process, focus on the puzzle, focus on, from month revenue to daily revenue. That'll change your mind right there. Focus on your CAC. Focus on maximizing your LTV, which is your lifetime customer value. How are we going to get our customers to spend more money over time? Right? How many first-time customers are we getting as well? And what is the system that we have that's bringing in new first-time customers every single month like clockwork? If you do those things over time, you're going to run it up. You're going to make 6 figures. You're going to make 7 figures. You're going to make 8 figures. But these things right here, they only work over time. That's what I've learned. Everything that I'm saying is gold, but it's only gold if you do it day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, so that you can see it compound, right? A lot of people be wanting these short-term results. or these short-term things, but deep down they say that they want long-term success, but they only want short-term results because their actions are showing that. If you're really committed to the long-term, then make these long-term decisions right now, right? Somebody, if you want to make, a couple mil a year and you afraid to invest $2,000-$3,000, you're not ready, right? You're literally not ready for this because you got to understand, right? $1 mil a year is $83,333 a month, right? Okay, cool. Now, out of that, that's not all just coming to you out of the sky. You have to have a system that generates that, which means that out of that 83,000 that's coming in, you probably got a smooth 30 to 45 to maybe 50 that's going out, depending on your business model, depending on your margins. If you're not ready, if you can't fathom, if you can't wrap your mind around having 30, 40, $50,000 going out, you're not ready to have $83,000 coming in. And that's just what it is. And there's a lot of people that's making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a month, a year, that's not even ready for that, right? Because they're more focused on revenue rather than understanding how this whole, machine works. So you got to be focused on building a machine rather than making some money. And the machine is going to be what generates the money for you. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about, man. If you're trying to strategize on your business, then get this workbook right here, Strategize with a Vision. Don't sleep on this. Don't sleep on the stuff I'm saying. You can literally go become, I don't even want to say become a millionaire, but you could really build, a legit business and, grow it to 7 figures if you focus, if you are disciplined, if you are doing the things that you need to do consistently over time. All right, so always remember, everything you do in life starts with a vision. Drop something in the comments right here. And yeah, always remember, everything doing life starts with a vision. Peace.